Folks, welcome back to the Wanneroo channel. Today we have an awesome video coming up. Winning the war on carpenter bees. Can we do it? Yes, we can, and I'm going to show you how. So folks, as I showed you in a previous video, we had basically they were drilling into these posts and making one hell of a mess. And as you can see, there's no bees around. So essentially a month ago, it was like the Battle of Britain up here. There were bees everywhere, swarming all over the place, tons of them everywhere. And well, they're gone. Let's see how I did it. Now, the first thing I have to tell you right off the bat is that in order to deal with stuff like this, I have found this time and time again with any pest. Once it decides to get into your space, it will not stop, and it will keep coming back pretty much no matter what. It can be whether it's a bear, a squirrel, a raccoon, bees, mice, ants, whatever. Once they have set their mind on they're coming into your space, they will not back off until you eliminate them or totally remove them from the area. Sorry, but that's just the way it is. And I'll tell you, I love wildlife and everything out there, but as soon as it gets into my space, then it becomes a problem, and I simply do not tolerate it. That's my policy. So to reduce the numbers of carpenter bees very quickly, we have a couple of different options. I have found this to be very, very effective. This is the Bug Assault Shredder. Doing a separate review on this. If you saw the previous video, you saw it in action. Works very well to reduce the numbers very quickly. It's very effective. The previous Bug Assault works fine for flies and stuff like that. It's like a little, basically a little mini shotgun. You rack it each time that you shoot it. This is actually gas-powered CO2 cylinder salt clip. And pretty much what I started doing at multiple times of the day whenever I could, I would come up here and essentially just hunt these carpenter bees and just continuously work on reducing their numbers. So a lot of times when I first came up, I would get 7, 8, or 9 at a time. And then gradually as I reduced their numbers, I brought it down to, a couple at a time, down to maybe 1 at a time. To the point now where we don't have any. And that a lot of it comes in play with the other stuff here we're going to talk about. But this worked very effectively at quickly reducing the numbers. The nice thing about it too is you can make quick follow-up shots and stuff. I'm doing a separate review on this. I'll get more into nitty-gritty on that. But just this does very well. It's very effective at being able to take them down very quickly. Now, I did see people out there online. They're using essentially some of those cheap 22 revolvers with little 22 LR shots. Like little lead shot. Sure, that can work. The only thing is that sometimes if I have a shot I'm going to take up close to a building, I don't want to be peppering it with all that lead shot. And I just think the salt is just more sensible, however you want to do it. But this works very well, and we'll talk about it more in another video. Now, the other thing that I found very effective to actually drive them out of their holes. So sometimes, especially when I first had that major infestation at the beginning of May, I found this very effective to, once they crawled into a hole, this would actually get their ass out of it. Spraying this up inside of it, they would and essentially drop out, and basically it'd kill them. So this works very well. However, it's a temporary thing. I found pretty much like if I sprayed any of the holes with this, it might keep them out for about 24 hours or so, and then they would start to come back and start to reinfest if I didn't do something else. So it is effective where if you can't get to them with the Bug Assault, this works pretty good in terms of like actually getting them out of the holes if they are actually inside of there, and perhaps doing them in as well. Now, the only drawback that I saw to this was that it is a bit cheaper than some of the Raid, but I found some of the cans, they really didn't last that long. It was almost like kind of you'd get a couple of really good sprays out of it, and I think too it does reach, it says up to 27 feet, but pretty much a couple of big sprays, I don't know, it just seemed like the can would kind of go pretty fast. However, you can pick them up pretty cheap for a couple of bucks, and just buy them in bulk, you know, and do that. Now, another thing that I found effective, I didn't see so much in terms of killing them actually directly, but as basically a deterrent to actually keep them away, was the Spectracide Pro. The one thing with the Spectracide Pro is that it has permethrin in it, and permethrin is what I actually found, along with its natural derivative, pyrethrin. Coating everything with that actually was the biggest deterrent in terms of keeping them away from coming back and reinfesting the holes. Now, there's a couple of little things. We'll talk about that in just a second. The good thing with this, it's a little more expensive than the Spectracide, but you can spray it up to 20 feet, so it doesn't have as much range. But with that permethrin, essentially what you do is any surfaces that they're boring into, coat those surfaces, and also too try to aim it to get it in the holes. Now, just like any sort of insecticide or anything like that, long sleeve shirt, you might want to wear a mask or a face shield or something like that. You know, nitrile gloves, whatever, just protect yourself. I don't think permethrin is like overly toxic to humans, but apparently you don't want to breathe it in large quantities or anything like that. And then once it's dry, it's pretty safe. Actually, you know, you can use permethrin spray on your clothes as a tick preventative. But this, I found what I was doing with this was actually going around and coating all of the wood. And then what would happen is some of the bees would come back. They actually wouldn't go into the wood. They would hover near the wood trying to figure out what was going on, because this is the permethrin is toxic to them. And then also the ones that did kind of come back or survive this or whatever, and they would hover around that wood, then they made easy pickings for the bug assault, and I could get them with that and use that on them and take more of them down. But this was very effective at that. The next thing is, along with permethrin, is pyrethrin. This is actually the natural compound, and the permethrin is essentially kind of created in a lab. So whatever you want to use, this pretty much comes from the chrysanthemum flower. Now, the one thing is, a lot of people kind of see this on Amazon. They think it's going to be some big gallon jug or something like that. But actually, it's a concentrate. It's a smaller container. I think you can get it in larger containers, but you need to dilute it down. So what I've been doing is essentially putting it in a Zep bottle like this, diluting it down, and then before you use it, just shake it up real good and all that. And then I go around with this and coat all the wood with it, and just use it the same basically as the permethrin. So I had started initially using a lot of permethrin. I've kind of switched to the pyrethrin, and that seems to be working pretty good. And I believe after a while, if we continue coating the wood with it, it'll essentially act as a deterrent kind of long term to keep them out. Now again, just like the other stuff, when you're using this, it doesn't appear to be like overly toxic or anything to humans, but apparently you don't want to kind of deal with it in large concentrations. So it's a thing of, again, long sleeves, nitrile gloves, mask, or whatever, and just don't do it. What I do is I wait for, you know, before dusk if there's not a lot of wind or something like that. Otherwise, the spray will just go over and all over you and all that when you're trying to apply it. So just wait for a time where it's not windy and use it. Now, getting some information from my local state extension office, one thing they say is that with the life cycle Carpenter bees, they pretty much, you know, the female lays its eggs here in May, and then there's a second hatching in August and all this. Essentially not to cover the holes until fall. However, one thing that I did find is after I used the permethrin and pyrethrin for a while and drove them away, I came back up here, pressure washed everything to clean it up from all the pine pollen and stuff from over winter, all that sort of thing. And a few of them turned back up and started to reinfest the holes. So I think gradually over time, what I am going to do, and what I have been doing, is essentially taking the shop vac here and sucking out the holes the best I can, and then coming back and taking this copper, using a little bit of polyurethane sealant into the wood. And once I get a little bit of sealant injected into the wood where the hole is, taking a bit of copper mesh and pushing, and what I've been using actually is what I use in gun cleaning a lot. I find these little bamboo rods, they work really good. They're a little bit flexible and everything too to kind of get up in the holes. And I've been taking little bits of these of copper here, and you can just tear this with your fingers actually, and stick this back up into the hole. So if they do chew through the caulk, which apparently sometimes they can get pretty determined to do that, they're going to end up at some point chewing into all this copper here, and that probably won't work for them too good. So I've been taking a bit of copper, putting it up into the holes, into the sealant, and then what I'm going to come back and do is take some wood putty, use some wood putty, and then further seal up the holes. Your choice in terms of how you want to do it, but for me, it's something I'm gradually going to work on, sealing up some of these holes to keep them from coming back and reinfesting. So I've heard two different kind of opposing opinions on it. You just have to decide what's going to work for you. Now, one last thing I will be putting up here around the range building as a preventative thing is a Carpenter bee trap or two. Got these on Amazon, and I'll do a full review on them, and we'll see how they actually work. So not used these yet, but my thinking is I decided to get these and just give them a try, because a lot of times there might be times where I'm busy with work or whatever, and I can't be up here kind of dealing with it all the time or being on top of it. So if the bee trap is here kind of doing its work and it actually ends up working, any stragglers that kind of make their way here and decide they want to set up home here, maybe they'll go for the bee trap here and I can catch some with that. So we'll see how it goes. Also too, got some of this trap lure for carpenter bees. So again, we'll end up trying this out and see how it goes with it. So folks, in the end, when it comes down to it, can you win this war against the carpenter bees? Yes, you can, but it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a little bit of money and some effort to do it, and you're going to have to stay on top of it for a while, especially in the spring months, and then also too when they have their second hatching in August and September, at least where I live. And you're going to have to basically, number one, eliminate them directly. That's going to be one thing, is you just got to reduce their numbers. So that's going to be key, and that's where that shredder comes in, and that's where the spectricide comes in to get them out of the holes. Then a longer term deterrent in terms of that permethrin or pyrethrin, which is toxic to bees and also other bugs, and using that to coat the wood or the areas around the wood to deter them, so they're like, well, I can't really eat that wood because it's toxic. They know not to basically mess with it. So it's something where you can use that as a longer term deterrent to keep them out of the wood. And then the last part of it is going to be eventually somehow you're going to have to fill those holes back up. Otherwise, other carpenter bees are going to come along at some point and they're going to say, hey, somebody already built a house for me here. Hey, let me go ahead and burrow in there. It's already done. So, or at least part way done. So, as I have seen, if that permethrin or pyrethrin gets washed away, like after the first time I sprayed it, a number of bees came back and I had to kind of repeat the process till I got rid of them, and using that permethrin and that pyrethrin multiple times to kind of get that done. So it's a thing where it's kind of a step-by-step approach, eliminating them, deterring them, and then essentially refilling back up their holes so they can't reinfest it. So if you all are interested, check out the Amazon links below to any of these products I use that are available on Amazon. When you do that, it kicks back a little commission to the channel, and it's a way for people to voluntarily support the channel. And when you support the channel, I'll make more videos. Pretty simple. So I appreciate all the support, folks. Stay tuned. We got tons of cool videos coming up that I'm working on. I have so many videos. It's crazy right now, and I'm going to try to get as many videos done here in June as I can. All sorts of stuff going on, and there's going to be a lot of cool stuff in the future as well. If you have comments, leave them below. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You never know what you're going to see on here, and we'll see you all next time. Got him.